Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, a homeowner association invited over 160 people to my private property to cut down my Christmas trees while I was away. They stole my pine trees without permission and I sued them. I have a large amount of property and I won't lie and say I'm doing anything particularly productive with it. I will say that I have a ton of pine trees on the property and I make it a small mission of mine to have as many grow as possible. Too many people here are quick to cut down trees for every little inconvenience, like they don't actually provide us with the oxygen we breathe. Unlike my love for the trees, I have pure hate for the HOA in my area. They just really rub me the wrong way and are always the first people to try and cut down more trees and nature in order to build structures that we just don't need. I'm all for people having places to live, shop, eat, etc., but there really is a limit where you are destroying nature for nothing that important. I believe the last thing before this story really starts was them wanting to destroy natural land in order to build a baseball field. Just because the other one is all the way on the other side of town and people might not want to drive. You can agree or disagree with my position, which is the beauty of the internet. What I hope nobody will agree with is what the HOA did to my land one day. So, see, they always hated how much of the area was my property and they could not touch or destroy it. Especially when I would not give in to even joining and giving them a smidgen of control. It was right in the middle of the pandemic and the holiday season was approaching. The HOA wanted to have some big event where the members could come and cut down their own Christmas trees to bring them home. And of course, people wanted a classic pine tree, but since the HOA destroyed most of them, the only big area to do it was my property. They figured that I would not miss or care about a huge number of trees going missing, and also there are over 160 members in this HOA, so we are not talking like 20 to 30 trees. The holidays came faster and soon the HOA got word out and hosted an entire weekend of people coming out and getting to cut and take their own Christmas trees away. You might be thinking right about now that I was an idiot for not stopping it right when it started. Or maybe living under a rock for not hearing about the event before it started. Some of you might even think that I could be to blame for allowing it all to happen. To answer all of these hypothetical questions, I need to explain where I was during this whole ordeal. Well, I had COVID and I was in the hospital hooked up to a ventilator, having no idea what was going on in the world around me. The HOA knew that I was not going to be able to stop it, so they went crazy and just did the entire thing without a shred of permission. Hell, when I got out, they did not even bother telling me what they did in case I just did not notice a huge chunk of my trees gone with their stumps still firmly planted in the ground. They did not even bother to get rid of those. I found out instead because I went on their website out of suspicion and they made posts bragging about the event and how it was such a big success. Posts before that giving people the address where to go, and I saved all of that in case it magically disappeared after I started getting back at them. This was like 2 months after Christmas, by the way, so they were relaxed and not worried about me coming after them at all. What was I gonna do anyway? Ask them to put the trees back? So I filed a lawsuit against them for illegal trespassing, chopping my trees without permission, and other damages like the leftover stumps. I even contacted some people that I'm friends with that are part of the HOA to try and find out more information about the entire thing. All of them were confused and were under a various number of impressions from things they were told by word of mouth from the HOA. Everything from it was a fundraiser and it was somehow gonna help pay my medical bills despite the trees being free, all the way to that I was part of organizing it and just wanted to make everybody happy for the holidays at the end of a horrible year. When I told them the truth, they felt horrible, but I did not blame the people at all. I blamed the HOA. I was right to save the posts because as soon as they got the lawsuit, they tried deleting everything they could off their website to make it seem like the event just did not exist. With modern technology, anything can be dug up again, so they were just making their own story look worse. It was not until our first meeting with the court that the HOA had any kind of story that made them look like not a-holes. Well, court via computer cams because COVID and everything. HOA lawyer: the HOA was under the impression that those trees were not on any owned property, instead just on unclaimed land in their jurisdiction. All they wanted to do was give the good nice families in the area a tree to try and give them a normal Christmas. I think after this year we have all been through enough, so you can understand that. My lawyer: if they assumed it was their property, then why did the address you gave for the location be the one of my client? Also, if the area did not have an address at all, according to you, furthermore, why do so many people that came claim that they knew it was his property and that you lied and claimed he was involved in the entire thing? HOA lawyer: well, we did try to contact your client to get him involved. He never got back to us, so we decided to move ahead and put it in his name because he was sick. My lawyer: more than sick, in a state unable to defend or speak for himself. Unable to tell your clients that they cannot cut down trees, which he has told them several times before, by the way. Trees that the HOA are well aware were on his property and went ahead and cut them down anyway. This went on until the HOA side realized they did not have anything they could use in their defense and they were gonna lose. We came to a settlement that I would not press charges against the trespassing counts if they paid for the damages they had done and also for the cost of the stump removal. After a bunch of boring back and forth between the lawyers, I got a settlement of $50,000. That might sound like a ton of money, but remember, it was a massive amount of trees cut down, so the cost really does add up. The thing that they could not win with the settlement was the reputation they now had among people. Taking advantage of somebody when they were sick to destroy their property did not go over well once the word got around. I had people messaging me and apologizing, offering me tree starters to plant. I told them all it was not needed, but I did appreciate it all. The HOA got so unpopular that they were basically being shunned. Due to pandemic messing with a lot of laws, they could get away without paying the HOA. Which is what all of them did until they didn't have enough money to even run the HOA and they were forced to shut it down. Officially, they called it taking a hiatus for the pandemic. It's been 3 years and I see no signs of it coming back, so for all intents and purposes, the HOA is gone. And yeah, ripe stars, maybe that was one of the things the pandemic was good for. Maybe it got rid of some homeowner associations. Anyway, if you still enjoy the HOA stories, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post a comment, because that would help me tremendously. And the next one is another story, technically about something that is very similar to an HOA. However, it takes part in Venezuela. So, about 40 years ago, I was newly married to my wife and living on my family farm in Venezuela. It was not one of those giant farms, but it was passed down for generations and I really did love it. A perfect size to both make a living but also some time to spend with the family. My favorite part was that I had a really good view from my land of just salt wide open fields that the sun would rise over. In my mind, it was absolute perfection. HOAs did not actually exist here back then, but I don't really know what else I can call the group of people that I was having issues with. They were basically a small group that ran the entire area and took care of things. Well, maybe a fitting word would be mafia or militia or something. That's always what comes to my mind here. Anyway, they organized the events and made sure things would get repaired. That kind of stuff. Anyway, one day my wife got the mail and saw that inside was a letter with the HOA's semi-official seal on it. She was shaking as she read the letter and handed it to me to look at it. I can't remember exact wording of this many years later, but they were basically asserting claim over the farmland and saying that we had to move within 2 weeks. They might take care of the area, but they did not have any right to my land. There was nobody for us to really call because, like I said, they ran everything here. If I was to go into town and complain, I would just find one of the friends of them and they would tell me to move. I could understand my wife's fear, but I had anger instead. Nobody was gonna take my family farm away without a fight. After a couple of days of not knowing what to do, I just went into town anyway and stormed into the office. I'd never been to this place before, but let me tell you that they were trying way too hard to seem rich and fancy. The place reeked of bad cologne and tacky furniture. Sitting in the office was the head of the HOA, and I was gonna try and speak to him like a reasonable man. I told him that the letter must have been a mistake and my land does not actually belong to the town, so the HOA cannot take it just away and make us move. Besides, we don't even owe those guys any money because we take care of the land without any help. We are separate from the HOA and should not be getting any type of letter from them at all. He just told me that the letter was not a mistake and they were taking claim over the land. That I could either take my wife and move within 2 weeks or he would send men to force us out. I could tell that he was getting a ton of enjoyment from attempting to gain power over us. There was no reasoning with a man this evil. I was red in the face when I left the office and promised him that he would regret trying to mess around with me. I found myself a lawyer that was willing to help us with the limited money that we had. He was suspicious that there was a bigger scandal going on than just him trying to steal my land. He was not gonna only help me, but also try and dig as deep as he could into what they were up to. First, he was looking over the letter and documents from the HOA that was their evidence to take the land. He said that it was total garbage and anybody with a law degree would see that it was a mess and clearly not real. Looking more, he could see that our farm was valuable land and that they were looking to make a killing on it once they got a hold of it. We were not letting these thieves get away with stealing the farm. We also wanted to make sure that we had the last laugh after I experienced his cocky attitude before. Court was a total mess and it was clear how entitled this HOA thought they were in this case. They really figured their position gave them any kind of power to do anything they wanted. The thing was that they did not have a single piece of legal evidence that our lawyer did not poke a ton of holes into. To really drive it home, I was able to talk about how the farm was in my family for generations and I planned to have kids and start a family there. That I did not understand why they could be so cruel to kick us out just to make a quick buck. If we did not have the win in the bag before my speech, we for sure had it afterwards. My lawyer gave a great closing argument of just being that they ran the town didn't mean that they could take from people. That if they were meant to run the community, it was scary to have them in any control. He actually made the people scared to let that group keep running things because of what they had done to me. You can probably guess by now that we won in court and we're not gonna get kicked off the farm. It was actually better than that because the court decided to find the HOA members all guilty of forging fake documents, embezzling money that people were giving them, and even faking the repairs for the community, using cheap materials so they could take as much for themselves as possible. They all went to jail and I was left to run my farm with my wife. With those guys out of power, we had a new group come in that actually did want to help the community. They were honest, hardworking guys that did not end up doing anything wrong during their tenure in the position. After 40 years, there have been some good and bad people running things, but nobody was like that first group. Our story is kind of a local legend and might be stopping people from having ideas about trying the same. The story grew like the crops on my farm, and most versions I hear are exaggerated or have extra weird details, talking about us getting into a gunfight and other crazy stuff. I guess some people want things to always be as exciting as possible, so they stretch the truth. Personally, I think the story can hold on to the truth and does not need these fake add-ons. My wife, on the other hand, loves it when she hears a new variation and says if it helps to stop people from getting bad ideas, then it is fine with her. Also, in case anybody wonders, we are still living on that same farm, with our kids helping run it just like I wanted all those years ago. And by the way guys, if you're wondering, because the English was a little bit strange in some parts of the story, the original story was written in Spanish and I just put it through Google Translate, so maybe some small details got mixed up or something, but I still think it was a good story and definitely worth telling. Personally, I think it is interesting to have these stories from other countries as well and not only be limited to English stories. The next one is titled, Was I the A-hole to my wife? So my wife has been out of work since 2018. She had a mental breakdown during her 5th year of teaching. She has been going to therapy since, and we started marriage counseling during COVID. Reason for marriage counseling was because she thought I was pushing her too hard to go back to work before her and her therapist thought she was ready. I tried to explain many times that was not my intent, but realistically speaking, for me to keep up with expenses and retirement contributions, I pretty much have to take on extra shifts, which sometimes clock in over 18 hours a day, and on average I've been pulling 84-hour weeks. I've been doing this since she stopped working. We recently had a fight because I had an extremely rough week and had the conversation again about her going back to work. She opened up with the same line she always does. We don't feel it's the right time yet. She feels I have made great progress and if I rush it, I run the risk of losing it. The we being her and the therapist. I told her I really don't give a damn what her therapist has to say and I'm sick of you hiding behind her words whenever this topic comes up. She starts crying, tells me she doesn't like being this way either and I'm belittling her due to suffering from mental health issues. I replied saying that I don't belittle you or take your issues seriously, the problem is I'm running myself ragged and what happens if I have a mental breakdown? Do you think that I will have the luxury of not working? No, I will have to push through my demons. She said her therapist warned her this would happen sooner or later and I would try to manipulate her into doing something that she was not ready to do. This is when I really lost it and just let it all out. I did not say anything kind. I told her that she insults me for thinking what I'm doing is manipulation, I told her I'm working these extra shifts so she can be home and BS playing games. I told during this entire time, you have not even made an effort to improve on certain skills. I told her she can still not cook to save her life and that I was sick of coming home after 12 or 18-hour days. Just make us dinner because her idea of making dinner is pretty a pre-made in the oven or ordering out. Among other things, that said, she stormed out of the house crying, yelling and shouting how I'm a piece of crap and rather see myself comfortable versus her getting better. So here I am. I don't feel at the core that I'm wrong, and while what I said was harsh, I think it did have to be said. So Reddit, was I the a-hole here? And here, ripe stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this pretty difficult situation. Do you think OP was being the a-hole here or not? Small update from OP, by the way. Yes, I've been to a couple of sessions with my wife and her therapist. To be honest, it largely felt like I was getting ganged up on. My wife brought up how I was always tired, so I explained that I'm working harder to maintain our home. When I suggested part-time work would allow me to work less, their counter-suggestion was to cut things like saving for retirement and hold off on paying off debt and tackle such things after my wife gets better. Then I suggest renting out the house to cover the mortgage and we downsize to an apartment. Her therapist said such a drastic change to her environment could have a negative impact on her depression and advises against such a major life-changing event. During another session, she brought up how my suggestion that she tries cooking to save money is that we don't order so much. And that she felt insulted because in terms of money coming in, I'm making slightly more than our combined income and she was able to cover her expenses, so she doesn't understand why we are having such a hard time. I was honest, it has less to do with money per se and more so the fact that the amount of hours I have to work to maintain the income. I told her I'm pretty much working 2 full-time jobs. The cooking or doing things around the house was dropped fairly quickly and became a critic on how I cannot manage money since I'm making more, yet I never had issues when she was working with how she spent. More or less every session became what I could do to help my wife, and I get that her therapist has to look out for my wife and generally my concerns are small compared to my wife's. My wife is not a huge fan of our marriage counselor because she offers suggestions that go against her therapist. My friend has also suggested that I speak with a lawyer to see exactly what my options are. After reading many of the comments and thinking back on everything, I think I'm gonna do that. I love my wife and I know she is sick, but I'm good to no one if I keep up this pace. Final edit. Thank you so much for the replies. It was a slow morning, only had one field call, so I was looking over the thread with a colleague and a close friend. After talking, I have decided to put in a request for 2 weeks vacation. During that time, I'm gonna relax with my friends, go play some Baldur's Gate 3 and get my crap together. I'm gonna speak with a lawyer and see what my options are because I was young and dumb and much of her debt is mine because I co-signed and I have a joint account. I'll go to the doctor for the first time in 4 years and make sense everything is still working as it should. During this time, my friend said I could crash at their place, so I'm gonna take him up on that offer. This will be my final post here though. Going over this, I made this post for all the wrong reasons. Honestly, this is something that I shouldn't have posted publicly, and I was petty for that. Even so, I thank everyone because a lot of what was said was what I needed to hear. I don't have much in terms of a family, both my parents passed away, thanks for the tough love. Something has to change, and if my wife is unable, I have to do it. I'm young, I should be enjoying my life, I'm not even 30 yet as my friend said. I aged so much in these last 5 years, it's scary. My friend showed me pictures from before all this happened and I want to go back to the person I was then. I agree I was the a-hole for what I said, but I don't regret it. It was a wake-up call I needed. And some people in the comments said, not the a-hole, ask her what about your mental and physical health? Also, are you sure the therapist is actually validating everything like this? It sounds a lot like your wife is just saying, but my therapist says, to sort of add weight to what she says, and to accuse you of manipulation is ridiculous. Comment number 2, not the a-hole, mental health is important, but damn, she has not done anything? A cooked meal is the least I could do if I were not working and my spouse was. There's no way she's that crippled to the point where she can look at someone working 84 hours a week and imply they are the selfish one. Like this account, make her a throwaway too. And yeah, ripe stars, once again, let me know what you think about this story in the comments. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.